Hi, this is Michael on YouTube Guitar Tutorials on YouTube. Today I'm going to take you through the process that I've used over the last few years to obtain my core amp tone for U2 songs. As everyone knows, the core amp, the main amp that Edge uses, is the Vox AC-30 Top Boost. He uses a Fender and some other amps sometimes for a select number of songs, like Vertigo. He uses a Fender. But in general, he relies on his AC-30. I have spent many years tweaking my amp model in my AXE-FX2 XL to come as close as I can to Edge's tone. And I get a lot of questions about requests for the preset and questions about how I got there. And there's no one way I did it, and I'm constantly tweaking the amp model. So I thought I'd do this video, instead of just sharing the preset and giving you the parameters. Usually that won't work for someone because you've got different equipment. You've got a different headphones, you've got a different guitar, different pickups, and in my experience, every preset that I've received from someone else, it never works for me. For some reason, I believe that the AXE-FX is very sensitive to the input, depending on everything from your volume control to the pickups to the guitar, and you're just not going to sound like the person who sent you the preset. So instead of providing my preset, I wanted to go through a video that explains, in general, the process I go through. And it's not scientific at all. It works for beginners, intermediates, advanced players. I do not understand every parameter from a technical perspective in the AXE-FX. I know some of it. I certainly know the AXE-FX model very well from the standpoint that I understand which parameters work for me, but I don't technically understand all of the parameters. Only the founder, Cliff from Fractal Audio, understands everything intricately, but you don't need to, and that's the great part of this. A couple qualifications here. This is going to be a long video because I do not script my videos, so I will edit it as much as I can, but please don't leave any negative comments about how long this video is. This is for people who are interested in this particular topic, and you can always skim forward if it's going too slowly for you. Second, I'm trying to articulate what I've done over the years in a very short video relative to the hundreds of hours I've put into the amp model. I'm constantly tweaking and experimenting, and over time there have been significant firmware updates where parameters have been added, they've been removed, and I've had to adjust with that over the years. So certainly we're just working here with one firmware update, latest firmware, version 2.0 Quantum. It's excellent, it's one of the best ever, it's fantastic. And what I'm going to do is take you through why I believe the core amp models, in certain situations, especially something as unique as U2 and the Edge, why certain core amp models in the AXE-FX, in my opinion, aren't really the right amp model for getting the tone that you're looking for. However, Fractal Audio exposes hundreds of parameters to you so you can adjust the amp model to your liking. And you can use this technique or this process for any amp model. The key is not to rely on a preset someone gives you. You can start with any basic default amp model, and you can work over time to adjust it to get the tone you like. The third thing is, it takes time. It takes patience. It doesn't happen overnight. This is one of the most sophisticated modelers on the planet. It's the best digital effects processor for guitar in the world, and it is not a plug-and-play device. So you have to be patient. You have to attack one block at a time, one parameter at a time. You have to step away and listen to some tracks and listen to record yourself and listen to your own audio and have other people listen to it. And it's an iterative process. But it is not going to happen overnight. It is not going to be magic. It's a lot of work like anything. But I'm going to try to show you essentially what I do and how I do it. And the way we're going to do this is, I do not have my parameters in front of me. I haven't memorized the parameters in my core amp model. Now I have a reference here I could get to, but I'm going to just work from scratch. And we're going to build an amp model. And it's going to take some time, and I'll try to edit this, but I'll try to edit in the highlights of the process. What we've got here is the AXE-FX2 hooked up to AXE-Edit. And this was a preset somebody sent me, and it had a comp and a drive and an amp and a GEQ and a cab and a delay. And like many presets out there, they're often what I find is there are too many blocks. People are trying to get tone by adding blocks. So they don't like the tone they're getting, so they add the GEQ and they start messing with the EQ. They think that comp is really important, and they throw in a comp in there because they think the compressed nature of the tone will help get them what they want. They use the enhancer. So the number one rule here is, I find, and what I've learned, is the less in the chain the better, just like in the real world. Now the XFX allows you to adjust volume levels and tones in many different places, and you can use that, but when you do that, the more blocks you add, the more parameters you're adding, then therefore the number of combinations to get to tone increases, and it makes things much more complex. When in fact, the amp model already has hundreds, if not, I don't know what the number is, it's probably not hundreds, but it's, there's got to be 50 plus adjustments here to make to your tone. And if you spend time on these parameters, you can get your core tone in your amp model, and then you can use the other blocks to essentially tweak your tone. Or, when you really need a boost, add a boost. Or when you need a drive you can't get in your amp model, add a drive. So that's my rule, is first try to keep it simple. Amp, cab, reverb, that's it. And I'm not going to show you and turn on these other things. Maybe we will later if we have time, so I can show you how they can muck things up. But start with your core amp tone model. This is an AC-30TB, and as you'll see here, amp Class A 30 watt TB top boost, and it's all default. I haven't touched this amp. And I'm going to just play a few notes here with the mic off so you can't hear my pick hitting the strings. And I'm going to show you what it sounds like. And then what I'm going to do as a frame of reference is I'm going to switch to my core amp tone, and I'm going to show you how unbelievably different it is. Now, I'm not claiming that you can't get the same tone with the core amp model, but I haven't been able to do so, so I've made material changes to the AC-30 default amp model in order to get the tone I want for U2 edge tone. So let's start here. First, here's amp, cab. This is a cab that I did not select. A friend of mine who on the U2 forum used these cabs, so I'm not selecting these cabs. I decided I liked them. They seemed to sound great. So the 65, 212, 58, that must be a 58 mic, and here's a Vox 65 Vox 212 with a 58 mic. 8 and 5, I forget, I don't know what those are, but essentially they were sent to me, I liked them, so I'm using those cabs. If you want to see I haven't touched too much here, it's in stereo, they're in high res. I haven't added too much I haven't messed with these too much. There is some room level here and some room size and some mic spacing. Mic spacing might be a little high, but I've just left it. The cabs are important to your tone. They can affect the EQ of the tone quite a bit, but I needed a starting point, so I'm just going to use this cab, and we're going to leave everything here the way it is. There's the motor drive is up here a little bit. So there's some D-phase. I don't know. I know this has been recently added, the D-phase. Maybe it's high or low. I haven't experimented with any of these too much yet. Like I said, it was sent to me. I just made sure everything was fairly basic, and I liked what I was getting, so I didn't mess with this. Certainly you could argue there are some tweaks or corrections you could make to this cab model, but as you'll see, it sounds pretty darn good. And this cab model is the exact same cab model that is going to be in my Streets preset. So this cab model is the exact same one. You can see, for comparison purposes, you'll see two of the exact same cab IRs in the cab. And I think all the settings should be pretty much the same. These aren't my settings, like I said, but they're pretty straightforward. And for comparison purposes, and now we're going to move here to the core model, which I set up clean. I use the same cab, and I've got an amp model here that is the default. So what does the default amp model sound like? Well, I'm going to turn off the mic, and I'm just going to play a few chords and basic notes and a little bit of the riff from a couple U2 songs. See what it sounds like. Okay, so there's just some E and D and A chords, and I played a little bit of Pride, made some mistakes, but I'll hopefully edit a couple of those things out. But you kind of get a sense for what this sounds like. Now, you have no reference for it. So let me just play my core amp tone model. And I'm not looking at the settings because I don't want to remember, but I'm just going to switch. And I'm going to play the same type of chords and notice the huge difference in the tone. This is without delay. Now I'm going to do just those last chords again, but I'll compare them directly without, because I know I wasn't playing the same thing each time there. But I think you can hear the second tone has got a lot more clarity. It's got more mids in it. It's what I call less muddy. I find that the core AC-30TB amp tone is very fuzzy, muddy is the only way I can describe it. And as I've compared my guitar into this model with other clips, I have tended to adjust my model to move toward clarity and more definition and more mids, and it just seems to work for me. So again, there's probably an infinite number of ways to get the same tone. All I'm doing is showing you my process to get to the way it works for me. So real quick, turn off the mic, and I'm going to do those last two chords again from Pride. This is the default model. As you can see, this model sounds totally different than my version of the same exact amp. I don't know why this occurs. I don't know why I can't use the core default model for U2. Maybe it was the amp it's modeled after. Maybe it's my input from my guitar. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What's great is Fractal gives you the opportunity to change anything you want. As you can see, there's a huge difference. I don't think this amp model works. Now, here's a delay, the core delay from Streets, and I'm going to add it in here. And I'm going to show you now what it sounds like. And I'm going to turn off the mic, and we're going to play this to delay. And we're going to play with the core amp, default model, and then we're going to play it with my model. Again, just so you can compare and hear the difference. Then we'll go through trying to turn this default model into what I think is a better model for U2. Here we go. And there you go. You can hear there's a huge difference. Again, I describe the core amp as just muted, muddled, lacks clarity. And over time, I've just changed these parameters to get to what I think works. So the next question is, well, how do you get to that? What's your frame of reference? So I have a couple frame of references for U2 tone. If you're using a different amp model with a different artist and you want to try to get their tone, just find some good, clear live clips of their playing and you can use it as a frame of reference. One of the great ones is from the movie It Might Get Loud. In the deleted scenes, there's a scene of Edge playing a number of different songs. So I'm going to go to that, and I've used this quite often as my frame of reference, and I've been updating my tone a little bit with this clip of Streets from the recent tour, and this is from a concert in Paris. And you'll notice I'm pretty close, closer to this tone here from Paris with Streets than I am my tone here, but they're still very close. But the key here right now is to just understand the frame of reference. So let's just hear the Edge here playing Pride, and then I'm going to play Pride with my guitar and my preset, and you'll see how close it is. And then I will attempt to play it with the core amp model, and you'll see how different it is, the default amp model, I should say. So here's Edge playing Pride. I'm going to turn off the mic. Okay, and let's move now to my Pride setup here, and I'm going to turn off the mic, and I'm going to play the same riff. Now, what would that sound like if we played it with the core amp model from the XFX? Okay, I've set up the core amp model, the default amp model in the Axe, with the same exact delay as I had in my clip. Here's what it sounds like. Mic off. And as you can see, there's a huge difference in the tones. So I have converged pretty well to Edge's tone in this clip. Okay, I'm going to do one more comparison here before we go on to my process. Let's look at a more recent clip of Streets, and let's hear Edge playing Streets. Now this is with a dotted eighth note delay also, just like Pride. So the delay does get in the way kind of trying to figure out the tone, but the core EQ is there. We're going to play Edge here, then we're going to play the amp with the default model, then we're going to play Streets with my model. Here's Edge from this year's Paris show.
What do you want?
As you can see, much better. And now I'm going to play it with Edge. This is just Edge, and now I'm going to chime in about a bar or two. Okay, I just stopped. There's that just Edge. And now. And now just my guitar again. Okay, so let's just play these two side by side now. Let's, you can kind of hear the difference. You should be able to hear the difference. There's a big difference. But I'm going to turn off the mic and I'm going to play the default, and then I'm going to play my core one more time. Okay, there you go. Enough of the comparisons. You can hear the difference. As I said, the core amp model on the AC-30 with my equipment, I'm not blaming this amp model by any means, by the way. I don't believe it works for U2 tones, and I believe that the tweaks I've made to it in general make it a more mid-range, clear, defined AC-30 type tone. How did I get there? Well, I got there by constantly listening to these clips and then adjusting these knobs and focusing only on the amp model. By the way, the cab is the same in both of these presets. The reverb is the exact same in both of these presets. My guitar is the same. It's a custom Fender Stratocaster, custom shop with Kinman pickups. The volume is on about 9, the tone was on about 9, and it was in quack position, second position, quack. Bridge and middle pup. The same for everything I was playing. I didn't touch the guitar. So we have a lot of consistency across these two, and you can tell, same amp model, huge difference in tone. The question obviously becomes, what do we do here? Okay, actually I think this is a good stopping point because I'm going to get into the process and the video is going to be longer than I expected. So I'm going to stop here, and if you're interested in this topic, continue to part 2 of this tutorial on how I tweak my AXFX Vox AC-30 top boost model. Thank you for watching. We'll be back.